Votes. The 2026 general elections is brought to you by Western Wholesale. Service at the right price. Blue Waters, hydration in every size. Nature's Discount. Get healthy with the ultimate health food store. Courtesy Garage, legendary service, legendary performance with GAC, where craft meets technology. Nissan, innovation that excites, and Hyundai. Let's go to the panel for the first thoughts. Barry, I hope you have your gavel to keep everyone in check this evening.
Well, it's funny you say gavel because we're going to give you some breaking news as we talk about heading to the courts, and that's what happened earlier today. A very historic day in the general election landscape in Barbados. In fact, the entire discussion of the last fortnight has been a lot about the Electoral and Boundaries Commission and that very controversial electoral list. Today, as Starcom Network took to the streets, many people were saying that they did not get a chance to vote, not because they didn't make the time to get there, but because their name was not on the list as was promised by the EDC. We can confirm that the Democratic Party, led by their attorney-at-law, Verla de Pisa, has indeed formed a court injunction today's election. Polls were supposed to close at 6 p.m. In some constituencies, that was extended to 7 p.m. And now confirm that in St. Philip North, for example, polls closed at 7 p.m. and also in St. James South. It is my understanding that was one of the other constituencies that polls closed late. Now, this has been a developing kind of story for such a long time. And when we come back right here on Barbados Votes, we're going to discuss this first of all before we get into how the votes went today and how the persons that went to the poll indeed went with them. We'll be right back on Barbados Votes.
Welcome to the Western Field Center, the home of quality products, excellent service, and of course, great prices. Come on, let's check it out. We've extended our product selection to offer a new and exciting range of products, from personal care items to household essentials, to meat and veg, and everything else in between. We are open Monday to Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m., giving you plenty of time to browse and stock up. Come on down to the Western Sales Center, the heartbeat of Western, where great quality, products, and excellent prices are in store.
Welcome to Nature's Discount, the ultimate health food store. At Nature's Discount, we have thousands of quality products at great prices. Our popular club membership is just $50 a year, and this gives you 10% discount on everything except food items, plus weekly and monthly specials of 25% off selected products. You can join up at one of our 10 branches or online at calmart.com. BART members can join our club for half price, and we have well over 3,000 amazing products to help you get healthy.
You see that? That man incredible, man. I wish he could still do something like that.
Hi, Tom. Yes, you. Are you glued to the couch, reminiscent of the old days when you were able to climb without any back pain?
Weird. Okay.
You could start with some exercise and some supported energy supplements. Ask about them at Nature's Discount.
Run all the way to Nature's Discount.
Nature's Discount has 25 locations in 10 different islands around the Caribbean. Here in Barbados, we have 10 locations throughout the island. You can find us at Trident House on Broad Street and Bridge Street Mall in Bridgetown, Carlton Supermarket in Black Rock, Dome Mall in Warrens, Sky Mall in Haggett Hall, next to Cave Shepherd in Sunset Crest, Town Square Shopping Centre in Speightstown, at the back of Hastings Plaza on the south coast, Sheraton Mall in Christchurch, and Emerald City in St. Philip. You can also find us at our online superstore, calmart.com. If you have any difficulty finding any of our locations, just give us a call at 625-9500. Please check us out on social media. Like us on our Facebook and Instagram pages at Nature's Discount. Thank you for spending this time with us. Please visit your nearest Nature's Discount store and see how we can help you get healthy.
So this is what I've been trying to tell you about. So for $8.99 a month, you can get travel credit, 5,000 Barbados dollars with going places travel, and we can go wherever we want. This card just feels like me. Practical, but not boring. Adventurous, but grounded. The kind of card that fits into my everyday life, whether I'm running errands, working out, or heading to dance class. This might just be the one.
This is what the linear acceleration of a new electric power feels like. This is what a world feels like where technology keeps you safe. Emotion that transports you to other worlds. This is Nissan X-Trail e-Power for every day.
Electoral list. And that played a massive part today in how people felt as we went on the streets. Starcom Network spoke to so many individuals who did not get the chance to vote, not because they didn't make it, because their names were not on the list. And that has been something that we've been discussing on Brass Tacks, generally in Barbados over the last 2 to 3 weeks. And today it culminated with the Democratic Labour Party forming an injunction, getting time extended, and the polls in fact closed in most constituencies at 7 p.m. I can confirm that St. Philip North, St. James South, among others, St. Lucie, polls were indeed extended to 7 p.m. because of that controversial list and many people with their names not on, despite assurances from the EBC that they had it all covered. Now, we're going to discuss this first of all. We saw a panel. We're going to go to Dr. Wickham, Dr. Elvis Wickham, of course, who's representing the interests of the Democratic Labour Party. And we also hear from this Ambassador Dr. Clyde Maskell from the BLP. Dr. Wickham, the DLP, they're the ones with Verla de Pisa, the attorney at law, who's formed this injunction. She's gone to court since, I think, 4 o'clock. We got a call from Andrew Campbell, the campaign manager of the DLP. He went live on Starcom Network at 4:30, made an announcement for persons who were having problems with getting to vote to come to George Street. And there were a flood of people who went there because they were having issues, and there was an attorney there seeing them through the process. Can you give us some up-to-date information as to what really happened?
Well, Barry, as our comrade leader Thorne had been saying for quite some time, the list was not ready. It absolutely was not ready. I mean, we are told 271,000 plus eligible voters in a country of about 270 plus thousand individuals. So they weren't really eligible because some of them are deceased. So a deceased person certainly can't be eligible. Certainly. Either way, 270,000 with approximately 3,000 births per year times 17 years is about 50,000 or so. So at most, our eligible voters total should have been about 25,000. But we've known this. This is not the first time. We were being told for quite some time the list is not ready, it is not ready, it is not ready. Why rush the election? We had over 12 months before it was constitutionally due at the time that it was called. This is not the first time that we had an election with eligible persons not being entitled to vote in violation of the Representation of the People Act. We would remember that in 2022, there were at least 6,000 persons who were in COVID isolation or quarantine who were unable to vote. Not every available opportunity was created to allow them to vote, because as we know, COVID positivity was not a restriction for being eligible to vote. And this is of great concern because in a democracy, I see no right more sacred than the right to vote once you're determined eligible. And every opportunity should be made for persons to exercise that right. I personally was involved in a situation of trying to get a first-time voter on the list. 4 times we tried, including going to EBC headquarters, filling out online, going to the registration center online again. And they were still did not get on to the list until a mysterious phone call late one night after online complaint, where they were asked to give their, then this was after registration had closed, where their person said, look, give me your ID number and I'll get you on the list. 9:30 that night, they were not on the list. And by 6 the next morning, they were on the list. And they had been trying from before the elections were announced to get on the list. Numerous problems with the list. And many, unfortunately, would have been disenfranchised.
Well, I can give a first-hand account because my name was indeed off the list. In fact, it was stated that I was out of the island for more than 5 years, and I voted in 2022. So I don't know how that happened. In fact, 5 minutes to 7 o'clock on the day that you were supposed to get your names in, I was at the St. Lawrence Primary School filling out my name, my address, because my name was off the list to vote. So I can indeed give a first-hand account there. I want to say to Ambassador Maskell, there was some thought of a political motivation by Ralph Thorne for going public and saying to the Prime Minister that this election should have been postponed. Now, the ABC don't have the jurisdiction to stop an election in Barbados, but what the Prime Minister can do or could have done was to indeed extend the time for the election, as Mr. Thorne was indeed stating. Can I get your thoughts on this, Ambassador Maskell?
Well, good evening. Well, Barry, I will not allow you to tell me what to say. And your question is not appropriate. Let me say this. A vote is a pure public good. This means that you are entitled to it once you qualify.
Yeah.
And you cannot be excluded from it. It is a pure public good. I'm hearing a lot of things here. I'm hearing many people. I am hearing a flood of people. And the issue that is important here is to be able to quantify. And what I'm hoping is that at each and every polling station, that individual who would have gone to vote this morning or afternoon, I'm hoping that those who are responsible took their names so that we can quantify how many people were denied. And why is that important? Because the ultimate political stroke here may be to suggest that because of someone being deprived of a vote in a constituency, it may affect the outcome of the vote. And that is why it's very important, and I'm admitting that we can't deny anyone the right to vote because it is a pure public good. A pure public good says that you cannot be excluded from that good. I query what you just said, because if you can tell me who qualifies for a vote, then you cannot use your argument that the voting list appears to be too big, because Barbadians living abroad are entitled to vote in Barbados. And therefore, by a pure addition of numbers over the years, a strange thing happens. Even though we consistently hear that our population is only 270,000 people, only persons 18 or over can be on the voters list. And when it is said that we have 261,000 people are capable of voting, it connotes to the average man that something is wrong. You know why? Because people under the age of 18 make up the population. And there are thousands of people under the age of 18. But I'm suggesting here that 271 cannot be wrong, because there's an entitlement of Barbadians living all across the globe.
But the chief electoral officer quantified that 271 by saying that deceased people were on the list.
No, but again, how many deceased people? You see, you have to be careful in trying to suggest
over the last 5 years
that something is not only the last 5 years. I led that. You see that thing there, 2003? Yeah.
The chart.
I was the DLP's leader. And the same thing, we had people who did not. It's just that it has now been elevated. And I'm not here to suggest that one person who has been denied the right to vote today, that one person should not get that right. Because I start by defining a vote. You cannot be excluded. But the notion that you're going to use numbers to suggest that something is wrong with the voters list in comparison to the population of Barbados is not the right way to do it.
But the salient question should have the voter, the
what?
February 11th election, should that have been put back?
But why?
I'm asking you, your thoughts on that. Well, many people didn't get a chance to vote.
No, you said many again. You said a flood before.
Yeah.
And now you're saying many. I want to know first, to make this argument compelling, you need to be able to quantify the amount of people who did not get a right to vote.
But
and
my question to you is, how many people would satisfy you that it would have been too many?
No, I told you at the start.
I'm asking a question.
No. I'm telling you what has to happen. I'm telling you that in order to demonstrate that the ability not to vote by Peter today has influenced the outcome of the election, we need to know how many Peter, Johns, Marys, and that were in fact denied in order to then make the implication that it has impacted on the election in such a way that the election should have been postponed or should not have occurred, and these other things. I am therefore saying that you have to be very careful in conveying the impression and then using data like 271,000 voters to suggest that something is wrong with the voters list. When in actual fact, I say to you that the population of Barbados is much smaller than the population of Barbadians. You heard what I just said? The population of Barbados is much smaller than the population of Barbadians. There are Barbadians living all across the globe who are still entitled to come home if they want to vote. And therefore, you cannot suggest or use that figure to convey a false impression about the voters list.
I want to ask Colvin Munzi, who's with the nation, he's been on the road a lot. How did this impact today? I mean, Dr. Maskell has said that there might be political motives behind the suggestion.
Oh, Lord.
But how you were on the road today. How much did this impact, Colvin?
Well, I see I have a handheld mic. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Basically, what we saw on the road today was consistent with what your report is suggesting, that number of persons complained that they were disenfranchised and were not allowed to vote. Whether or not there is an issue with the voters list, I will leave that up to the statistical experts.
Yeah.
However, questions must be asked as to how this will impact the election, though, in the sense that based on polls, we are expecting a low voter turnout. And the question must be asked, is this going to have some impact? Because there is no doubt that there are persons that were disenfranchised. I myself, like you, Barry, when I checked up to a few nights, up to Friday night, I was not on the list. I was added later on to the list. Yeah. So those questions have to be raised. I don't know if I am the person best qualified to answer it, but it is something that has to be delved into and looked into as we progress.
All right, we're going to get ready soon to go to actually up St. John. Don't want to get you too excited in thinking that the box is ready to be announced. But we're going to go to a reporter shortly in St. John just to see and get a sense as to what's happening out there on the outside. I want to remind you of our guest and our panel. We do have quite a big panel. Let me start to my right. David Ellis, of course, who needs little introduction. Dr. Christina Hines, of course, from Brass Tacks. Jamal Slocum, political analyst, who would boast that he just came back from St. Vincent and the Grenadines and St. Lucia, where the parties that he worked with were successful in their bids. But guess what happened here? Mia forgot him. So that's why he's here with us tonight. To his right is Dr. Wickham, who we spoke with earlier. You can't see the gentleman on call, but Kev Politics is our analyst, statistical analyst. And as we come around, Ambassador Clyde Masker, look forward to my very fiery discussions with him tonight.
Of course.
And Colville Munzi, who's done a fantastic job politically. I remember the last election in 2022, we met in the gas station, and back then, just behind him was the man who crossed the floor, Reverend Joseph Atherley, who said to Colvin, I think I have a good chance in this year's election. That was then. Kristen Turton, attorney at law, will get her perspective about this legal battle. And Devon Bruce, who's done a very good job as well as a political analyst with the University of the West Indies, CAFL. Let me come to you quickly, Kristen. How much of an impact with Florida Peas going to court, how much of an impact legally could this really be a shakeup to this election?
I'm not entirely sure that it can have a significant impact. I do think that it is important to be able to quantify the level of displacement that's being alleged. And to this point, that has not really been done. But it is good to see that there was some representation made on behalf of those people who were unable to vote, and some actions were taken in order to facilitate it. My concern is that I do feel it was a bit late. I think there was enough evidence before now, over the last few weeks, to suggest that this was an issue that might arise. And I'm really surprised that neither of the political parties mobilized the legal team to field complaints of this nature, particularly from the point when the when the actual final list was published, to be able to identify people who might have been affected in terms of not being on the list or not being where they should have been, so that then more urgent action could have been taken.
I want to challenge you there, though, because there was a very much a furor by the opposition leader.
Yes.
And the response by the Prime Minister was to bring in election observers.
No. Let's stick to the actual point here. If we are speaking about people not having a right to vote because they are entitled to be on the voters list, and there is an issue associated with that, the answer to that there could be a political answer where you recommend that the Prime Minister make some type of recommendation to delay the election date. But speaking from a legal perspective, the same injunction that was applied for today could have been applied for on Monday. It could have been applied for on Tuesday with respect to those people whose names were not on the list, or whose names were in the wrong places on the list. Now, what may have been more difficult to do before today would have been the people who, for example, received circulars telling them to go to vote at a particular location, and then being told when they arrived there that they were not on that list. But even so, the idea of having attorneys at law mobilized to act promptly is something that I would have thought both parties would have been interested in if they were so focused on ensuring that Barbadians were actually able to vote, as opposed to the political shenanigans associated with saying it's this person's fault or that person's fault.
David Ellis, let me bring you in here. Do you agree with that position being taken?
Well, I think a lot has to do with what played out today. From all accounts, quite a number of people said that they felt that they were disenfranchised, and that would have raised the bar and the alarm to a greater degree. I'm more concerned, though, about the role of the EBC and how its image has been impacted by all that we have seen and heard in recent days, and how this has culminated this evening with the kind of discussion that we are having. We need to go back to why the EBC was formed. We came out of the Department of the Supervisor of Elections, and the rationale for having an EBC was to give us a greater sense of assurance, of fairness in how our elections were being conducted. What has happened in these past couple of days does not do that for us. And when we talk about quantifying, we would have had to depend upon the EBC to give us certain numbers. First of all, we depend upon them to tell us what went wrong. You know, this does not make sense. Were they hacked? Did they have some kind of computer glitch? Was it a manual error? The people of Barbados were entitled to that kind of information first and foremost. We are currently shooting in the dark, wondering what went wrong and exactly how many people were affected. How many people turned up to them and said, my name is not on the list, I want it changed. You don't know that. So for me, it is the image of the EBC that matters here. And remember, this was supposed to be an independent body with 3 representatives from 3 commissioners from the recommended by the government, 2 by the opposition. What we have had playing out in public is the image of an EBC where the opposition people said, well, we were never invited to any meeting. You know, this is the body that is supposed to reassure us that all of them come together and make their input to give us the confidence and reassurance that we need. And that is my concern. I do not want to get caught up in the politics of it. What matters to me is that we've set up an independent body to give us a sense of reassurance. And what we have taking place this evening does not reassure us enough. That's my view.
All right, let's go to Krista J. Paul, and then we're going to head to our first reporter in St. John. Krista J.
Yes, thank you very much, Barry. If you're just joining us, welcome to our live broadcast of Barbados Votes. We are actually right now going to say good evening to Chantal Legal Gibson, who is right there in St. John at the Lodge School. Chantal, our first report.
Thank you.
We want to say a very warm welcome to you if you are tuning in on YouTube and Facebook, wherever you are right here. All right, I understand Chantal is with us. Chantal?
Hi, good evening. So I'm here now at the North School where we have 3 candidates vying for the constituency of St. John. We have the incumbent, Charles Griffith, who is contesting the seat both in 2018 and 2022 under the Barbados Labour Party, winning on both occasions to become the Member of Parliament. Also in that race, we have Democratic Labour Party's political leader, Ralph Horn, who crossed the floor in 2024, leaving the Barbados Labour Party to become the opposition leader and in turn the leader of that party. Mr. Thorne previously served as a Member of Parliament for Christchurch South, which was the seat he contested last election. Our third candidate is Kimar Stewart, who is no stranger to politics. He is the leader of the New National Party, which is a member of the People's Coalition for Progress. Mr. Stewart also left the Democratic Labour Party to form his own party after contesting for that party in both the 2018 and 2022 election. Currently, we're here at the Content Center. No boxes have arrived yet, but however, all the counters are in position. Everyone is anticipating the arrival of at least the first boxes. So far, we have 1 candidate here on site, which is Mr. Stewart, who is also anticipating tonight's vote. The atmosphere right now is quiet, as there are no people on the outside, and the feeling right now is one of anticipation as we await for the first set of boxes to arrive.
All right, thank you so much, Chantal Legal Gibson. She's going to keep us up to date with what's happening there. The city, that's also going to be a very keen, interesting place. We know that the incumbent, of course, is the Barbados Labour Party holding the seat, but Corey Lane held that seat from 2022 until he vacated that seat about 2 or 3 weeks before elections were called. And it meant that the Barbados Labour Party had another selection to make. And it was indeed Michael Lashley, King's Counsel Michael Lashley, who came over from the Democratic Labour Party. He was the first vice president, had resigned, came over, and he is now vying for that seat against Dale Rowe of course, from the Democratic Labour Party. Let's go to Tanisha Rock-Yaw. She is indeed in the city of Bridgetown, and she has an update for us. Tanisha? All right, just before we get to Tanisha, I wanted to ask Jamal Slocum. Jamal, you know, we've had a lot of discussion that's going on regarding the young vote. Many people are saying that the Barbados Labour Party has indeed been able to get the younger persons out voting. Last night in Bay Street was a classic example of seeing so many young people coming out. You represent the young people on this panel, Jamal. You're not even 30 yet. How are the young persons in Barbados feeling about voting? Because we know there has been some apathy.
Well, certainly, Barry, I think we cannot make an assessment on that until we see the turnout today. And even when we see the turnout, it's not going to be an accurate assessment of that. I don't think there's a differentiation whether or not you had X amount of young people voted or those on the age of 35 or whatever in the election. If I'm to base it totally on sentiment, it is quite clear that the Barbados Labour Party has been able to attract much of a younger base. By the look of its campaign, it is more vibrant, it's more exciting. You know, the use of entertainment, whether you have a young brother who was on the stage days before the elections, the election day, whether you look at Lil Rick, Mold, the popular names and faces, Master P, even who is one of the hottest dancehall artists in Barbados today. And I'm not discounting the incident which was sustained by many Barbadians in St. Lucie in Checker Hall. But I think the Democratic Labour Party this election more so held on to the party faithful.
Yes.
You saw a return of key individuals who would traditionally support the Democratic Labour Party back out and around the party. So if I'm to assess the situation, it is totally sentimental. It's based on the fact that the Barbados Labour Party has just crafted the image that's more exciting, more youthful, if to use that word.
All right, let's see if we can get to Tanisha Rock-Yaw now in the city. Tanisha, are you with us?
Here, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, good evening. I'm coming to you live from the Donald Henry Auditorium, Bethel Church, where preparations are on the way for the counting of the ballots in the City of Bridgetown constituency. What I could report now at this time is that the ballot boxes have not yet arrived here, and officials remain on standby for those boxes from the 11 polling stations. However, at this point, security is in place with about 10 police officers on location. Earlier this evening, Barbados Labour Party candidate Michael Lashley arrived here at about 6:30 p.m. I spoke with him briefly and he said that he's feeling confident but also a bit nervous, and indicated he will return later during the counting of the process. Now, just to give some context, Lashley is contesting the seat following the resignation of former MP Corey Lane. Also in the race are Democratic Labour Party first-time candidate Dale Rowe and Corey Beckles from the People's Coalition for Progress. Now, as we speak, the bus has just arrived with the boxes. I don't know if you can hear it. So I guess counting is going to get on the way shortly, and I will give an update as soon as I get the information. Reporting from the Bethel Church, Tanisha Rock-Yaw, Barbados Votes.
Thank you very much, Tanisha. I remember back in 2008, in fact, being at that very same auditorium covering this city, they were the first ones that you had results from in the city. So perhaps that could be very much consistent with how we look at the elections tonight. This is Barbados Votes. We'll be right back.
Cook it up and make we steam it. Fresh so me need it. Tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make we roast it. Farm perch so me need it. Tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought, so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, fully net. I tilapia, so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make it right. Fresh, so me need it. Tilapia, a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein, and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
My job is to ensure that every man, woman, and child maintain good health at all times.
Our primary function is to ensure that government services are delivered effectively and efficiently.
We are building forward
together.
Na, 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 na. We want a piece for Jamaica. Yeah, yeah. We have to be our brother's keeper. Yeah, yeah. Jamaica live good, yeah. I make we enjoy life. What we feel safe at night. Jamaica live good. I better you and I. No say we future bright. Jamaica live good. Come together as one. I make the violence
Reggae facts. Jamaica has had many reggae songs topping the UK singles chart. The first was Israelites by Desmond Dekker and the Aces in April 1969. The second reggae song to top the UK chart was Double Barrel by Dave and Ansel Collins in May 1971. Other Jamaican songs which held the top spot include Everything I Own by Ken Booth in 1974, Uptown Top Ranking by Althea and Donna in 1978, I Wanna Wake Up With You, Boris Gardner, 1986, Twist and Shout by Chakademus and Pliers featuring Jack Radix in 1994, Breathe by Blue Cantrell featuring Sean Paul in 2003, What About Us by the Saturdays featuring Sean Paul in 2013, Cheerleader by Omi in 2015, and Rockabye by Clean Bandit featuring Sean Paul and Anne-Marie in 2016. Now, Shaggy has had the most number one hits on the UK charts. Oh Carolina, 1993, Bombastic, 1995, It Wasn't Me featuring Rick Rock, 2001, and Angel featuring Rayvon in 2001. Reggae Facts was brought to you with the kind support of the Jamaica Association of Composers, Authors and Publishers, JCAP, valuing your musical creativity.
You never put up a fight, no.
I'm easy, cool and me calm.
Who will form the next government. In terms of how things have been going so far, we've had several discussions about the Electoral and Boundaries Commission and what has been going on. We switched the discussion just a little bit. We're going to talk to Dr. Christina Hines. She's had some very vibrant discussions on Down to Brass Tacks over the last couple of weeks. Dr. Hines, good to have you, good to see you. You look at the fact that I put this question earlier to Kristen Turton about the observers, the election observers, the impact that they might have had in this election. Is there a feel as to if that impact was indeed successful? Did they? Do you think they would have achieved their mission of coming here to overlook the election?
Well, they're only now observing the election, so they can't have achieved anything as yet. So there are a number of things they will need to look at. They'll need to look at processes that the Electoral and Boundaries Commission has conducted. They have to look at the count. They need to look at what has been occurring during today. So we can't say that they have achieved their objective. There are a number of people who are asking questions about what this means for them. If their name is not on the list, if they're on the list for a different polling station than they expected to be on the list for. What do the observers mean for that? Not a whole lot. But what they will tell us is what happened during this general election. And if there are areas that we need to improve, then we can work on those for the future. So we have to wait and see what they will find. And we won't know that until after the general election process has been completed.
I'm looking at the election observers' rules, regulations, and the criteria that they have to form objections. Under this right to obtain information, the election observers have the meaningful observation, which depends on full access to information, if not specifically sanctioned by law, access to negotiated relevant election documentation. They have the right to look at legislation, the rules, the regulations, voter registration records, and voter station location, which they determine. By looking at this, and this is what they'll be guided by, do you think they'd be looking on and seeing what happened in Barbados today and thinking, well, it's a good thing we came?
It's always a good thing when they come. I don't think it matters what they find. So they can look at a general election and find that it went extremely well. It's still a good thing to have them so that you are checking how we're doing. If the election did not go particularly well in some areas, it is also useful to have election observers. So the fact that Barbados has not had this process before is something that we need to ask some questions about. Why hasn't Barbados done this in the past? It's not because something is unusual that you need to have elections observed. This is something that really is best practice. It should happen as a matter of course, and it can help us to do better each and every time we have a general election, when we have a by-election as well. So whether or not things go smoothly, it is always useful to have these kinds of checks on how our electoral processes are working.
Devron, you spoke, first of all, with David Ellis and Professor Dwayne Devonish on that very well-known Nation Starcom poll that was done pre-election, which stated that the Barbados Labour Party, the incumbents, indeed had a massive lead coming into the election. That, of course, was before all of the campaigning would have begun. Now the campaign is over. Now that you've seen the BLP, the DLP, the Friends of Democracy, who looked pretty organized, and also the PCP, I think that's the name of their party. Now you've seen the campaign, and the campaigns are all done and dusted. Did anyone shake that Starcom network poll? And I say shake it. Did they shake it for the better, for the worse? Do you see any difference to what that poll indicated?
Good evening, and to give some context, the poll was suggested from individuals who intend to vote that the Barbados Labour Party commanded 77% of those individuals, whereas the Democratic Labour Party is receiving about 18%. What that reflects is actually a growth in favor of the Barbados Labour Party. We've only seen that before electorally in 1999 under Prime Minister. So it's showing to some extent that the Democratic Party is seemingly losing support. There are many areas and reasons why that may be happening, like the existence of the third parties, as you made mention, for instance, but we will have to see how the night pans out. Now, specifically to the campaign, given the short period of the campaign period, I would say that the Democratic Labour Party has carried out, to my estimation, a relatively commendable campaign. I think expectations might have been a bit low, given where the party has been over the last two electoral cycles and some of the difficulties it would have had internally. But to my mind, I think that they did a relatively good job. I can't think of any major strategic blunders or follow-ups, so to speak, from the Democratic Party. There are some, but to my mind, they did a relatively decent job. The Barbados Labour Party, the expectation is that they want to have the Prime Minister Barbados, who has led that party up for some time, the social media influence, the money, just the groundwork of that campaign. We expect that to be the case with the Barbados Labour Party. So I would say that the poll would not, to my mind, be shaken. The LP, I would think, would improve, given where they are. But the extent of work that's necessary for them to do now electorally, I'm not sure whether or not sufficient work was put in during campaign that would make a sufficient difference.
Just want to confirm that boxes have arrived at St. Michael Central and St. Joseph Primary. They've arrived at the city of Bridgetown. Counting will officially begin at 8 p.m. So that's in just about 2 minutes. There was a minor accident which caused the delay of boxes arriving in St. George North. And that unfortunately has put a bit of a delay there on what is going on where that is concerned. Boxes have arrived at St. Christopher Primary School in Christchurch. That will be the Christchurch East seat. And I'm going to ask now David Ellis. David, you would have been covering elections way back from the days of when Sybil Leacock upset Owen Arthur, way back. Does this election have that kind of feel of over the years of a general election in Barbados? And also, I must ask you, we spoke to Devon about polls. Were there polls back then, David, back in the 80s and even in the early 90s? Were there polls?
There would have been polls. I think the critical question is, when exactly were the polls conducted and released?
Yes.
Now, this latest poll was done before this campaign began in earnest. I believe the Democratic Labour Party's OISTIM meeting was the first that really showed that there was a difference in the turnout at their meetings. And we can compare what we've seen this time around with what we saw in 2022 and 2018. There are many people who have been surprised that they have been able to mobilize as many people at their meetings as they have done. So I was always cautious about the poll and being emphatic that it represented what would happen in the end. I felt that we needed to see the campaign in earnest, and then we would be able to get a better appreciation of the kind of movement one way or the next. And that's what I am waiting to see this evening. I have not been hearing in recent days the projection of another 30 Love. And I think it is based upon how the DLP has been able to mobilize its support to a greater degree this time around. You ask about the past and the mood. Personally, I have not been moved by this campaign, one way or the next. I have put it down to my age. I say I've seen so many of them. And, you know, there's a difference today. I can stay home and watch a campaign. I don't have to get up and go and then find myself struggling to get home at midnight or something like that. So I haven't been looking at the campaign in that kind of detail. Even the manifestos reached the point of not taking manifestos as seriously as other people, because these are mere promises made, but then I know they have to be implemented. And I'm aware that if Barbados has a real problem, it is with implementing things well.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that if you look at what we have been discussing this evening with respect to all the complaints, that's an example of what our challenge seems to be. Just the latest example of it. So, I mean, whether you look at the BLP or the DLP, I think that is a matter that I was looking for in the manifestos to see what were the ideas that were being advanced that suggest to me that we are looking to tackle that problem. Because it's not just a BLP problem. It's whoever is seeking to lead must be able to say to us, look, these are the things we are going to do differently. I don't know whether other members of the panel have seen something that jumps out at them, but I haven't seen that.
On the back of that, I want to ask Dr. Wickham. We know that the Barbados Labour Party, they, to their credit, have done a lot of research, and I know that they do a lot of polls during elections and even pre-elections. Does the Democratic Labour Party do any of that? Are they like others in the constituency saying where there might be weaknesses? Can you shed some light on what the DLP has done where that is concerned?
I will say individual candidates do internal polling in their particular constituencies. There is something that I did want to get back to from earlier and on the same matter of the EBC, which is that the EBC had not met in January prior to the election being called. Had not met in January prior to the election being called. And that was stated by the deputy chairperson, Hal Gollop. And also of note, and we haven't mentioned this so far, is that we had a list that had over 10,000 persons under the age of 18 on that list. So it has to be emphasized again that there are more than enough concerns about the list. That, as was raised legitimately by our leader, that consideration could have been given to delaying the poll by 30 days. But back to your point, Barry, your question, candidates do their own internal polling in their constituencies.
You know, you look at the fact, Christian, that these days, David, but it made the point, you don't necessarily need to go to a political party anymore. Zoom in 2020, when there was COVID, we had Zoom parties and people were enjoying themselves just at home. And this has been a constant trend. Now with election meetings, people are not going. They're actually just watching it and actually switching from one place to the next. This is going to be the trend going forward. Can we read into this as to perhaps some of the reasons for the apathy? Because people are not going out, but they just decided to tune in and out as they like.
I don't think that in any way would cause apathy. But as I indicated today, even on our program, Down to Brass Tacks, we should ensure that there is really a poll in relation to people who did not vote, so that we can stop speculating about why people may not vote. The question is, for those people who on the day decided, I'm not doing this, who were not swayed or otherwise convinced to vote, what reasons did they give? I actually think the access to information in your home is more likely to encourage you to vote than to discourage you from voting. Because truth be told, you have to click on the link. You have to be sufficiently interested to click on the link and to see what's happening. You can, if you're on social media, you can stop following certain things if you're not interested in them.
Yeah.
But if you are, the more you watch them, the more they appear. That's how the algorithm works. So I certainly don't think that the use of, for example, social media platforms or the use of the digital space to be able to observe to be able to observe campaigns and meetings is affecting apathy. I think we have to be more concerned about the extent to which people feel like if their vote matters.
Ambassador Maskell, we switch the attention now to looking at the Barbados Labour Party's record. 230 loves, an impressive one, 2018, 2022. What would you say has been the bright period, the bright spark for the Barbados Labour Party and government over the last 3.5, almost 4 years since the last election between 2022 and now 2026? Where has the BLP shone?
The Barbados Labour Party has restored pride to Barbados. Pride in having downgrades, pride in increasing the economy, employing people, buying buses, buying sanitation trucks, improving the overall performance of the Barbados economy, which went through a very difficult period between 2008 and 2018. And I don't think that anybody can deny what has happened. We had no foreign reserves. We now have 30-something weeks of foreign reserves. We were paying 68 cents of the dollar for debt. We're now down to 30 cents. We had an environment in which the Democratic Labour Party betrayed Earl Barrow's fiscal golden rule, which is that you should always have a surplus on your current account to help you to finance your capital expenditure. It is a fiscal golden rule that has all administrations adhere to it. That had to be reversed, and it was reversed. Now, the thing is, though, that I want to speak to this thing of apathy, if you will allow me.
Sure.
I have a view on it. Politicians, I'm not seeing enough of them canvassing. And the EBC is not large enough to do the kind of work, when I say do, the scale that you want done in terms of checking the electoral lists. The beauty of canvassing is that you then discover that Tom is no longer at 4C, Division Drive. And you say, boy, let me go and check because I need that vote. So you then go into the EBC and you say, I've done some canvassing. And it's the beauty of, in fact, politicians use canvassing, checking the list to tell people, I'm back here, right? But what's happened in this, and I think this is Clyde's view, what's happened is that having not done enough canvassing across the board and getting your candidates to be known, because I look at a whole set of candidates here and I don't know them, right? And I think you should use opposition to become known. You see, you find something to talk about when you're in opposition. And how about Barry and David? And you don't have to be the greatest scholar in English nor math. You know what gets you by in life? Your scholarship should be your attitude. And that's what people like. So the problem here, and I think is emerging, is that there's this apparent now desire to use social media.
That's correct.
You with me?
Yeah.
And people want to see you.
That's true.
And then when you canvass, you get to find out that Tom has left Eden Lodge now and living somewhere in Christchurch. And therefore, it is your interest to, years ago, to go and say, well, you know, Tom, you really belong to Eden Lodge. You only moved there just recently. Could you come back and vote for me? You ask those kind of questions. So what I think is happening, this is my view. And I like data. And I don't have enough data to be able to verify what I'm saying, but I suspect that I'm not wrong. Right? When would-be politicians go and canvass, they then help the Electoral Boundaries Commission to clean the list. And we have a problem with scale in Barbados. We can cook very well for 2 people, but ask us now to cook for a Dutch party or party, we in trouble. Oh, we don't know how we're scaling up. And that has been a major problem across the board in this country as well, doing things on a large scale. We saw it here tonight, you know. I know this, I'm not here to pick anybody. I'm saying you just need to start catering to doing things in a bigger way. So that my friend should have had his little thing rather using this. You with me? And again, I'm not picking at the entity. All I'm saying, we have to learn how to scale up in this country, how to do things on a big scale and do them effectively and well. All right?
All right, I'm going to ask Dr. Wickham to respond to that in a minute, but let's go to some live images of some boxes arriving at some venues. Of course, we are on location with over 30 correspondents out in the field. This is St. Michael East, where boxes have just arrived. This is a live view. And it takes, just within 30 minutes or so when the box arrives for them to start counting. It could be a very long night, to tell the truth, if we've had that delay. And we've also had the situation where the polls will close at 7 o'clock. St. James South, what's happening there? This is a live shot at St. James South. Very dark, but I don't mean to say it in this manner, but they're going around the back to, no one say put the boxes inside. But this is Ellerslie Secondary School, as they are also now coming off of the bus with the boxes as well. So look, it's now 12 minutes after 8. Boxes now going in. I don't think we're going to have results or some results until perhaps the next hour or so. Before we go to Crystal J, just a quick question to ask Dr. Wickham to respond to Mr. Maskell. He made the point that a lot of the young politicians are not canvassing enough. They're not being seen. We had a situation, I have to bring it up, that Dr. Ronnie Yearwood would have been working with the Democratic Labour Party in 2022, he was indeed just came in after Verlo Pisa would have demitted office, and he was trying to build that young kind of politician to be seen. And when Ralph Thornwood crossed the floor, there was that note or connotation that effort was indeed dug up, unspoiled. How do you respond to that, to what Clyde Maskell is saying, that a lot of young politicians are trying to make a name for themselves? They're trying to get in there, be seen, canvass, but that effort might have been viewed by some people as somewhat thwarted. And people believe that to this day, that caused some eruption within the Democratic Labour Party. How would you respond to that?
I can unequivocally say from the time of my association with the party that our leader Thorne has not thwarted young persons at all. He's extremely supportive. Persons are allowed to speak freely in meetings. I do agree with the point Ambassador Maskell made that, you know, candidates in general, politicians in general, need to be out there and I wouldn't use the expression of helping the EBC to clean up the list, although I do get his point. But I do agree with that. Yeah, you know, the more time you spend in the constituency is better for you as a politician, better for your party, etc. I do have to say, or remind us that this election was called over a year before it was due. So yes, the EBC has a problem with scale. Mm-hmm. I take that point, but it was called over a year before it was constitutionally due. That time could have been used to get the list properly sorted. I also want to respond to something else Ambassador Maskell made, a point he made when he said that the debt is now 30 cents out of every dollar that is being used to pay debt. I do recall central bank review at the end of September 2025 that it was 76 cents per dollar that was being used to pay debt, leaving only 24 cents to be spent in Barbados. So I'm not sure where the 30 cent came from. So something dramatic might have changed.
Oh, Lord.
Something dramatic might have changed between September and report for the end of December.
Clarify that.
You're making an error. You're making an error, a major error.
That was taken from.
No, you're making an error. Let me just correct you before you go in the wrong direction. Is a simple error. Debt servicing includes amortization plus interest payment. This is why it appears to be. This is why it said it was 68. And then if you ask yourself the question, well, how could it be 68 when wages and salaries and goods and services and transfers and subsidies still got to come out of this, right? The reason why it is because like a mortgage, when you borrow money to build a house, the mortgage is converted to a real asset called property. It is the cost to the person with the mortgage is only the interest component. So when you do debt servicing, we also include the amortization, which is the principal payment on the loan. But technically that is taken out of the deficit. You hear me? So that when you pay a loan, you also pay back the principal. Mm-hmm. But economists take out that principle so that it kind of overstates. And that's why you can then be confused that, hey, but your debt servicing at 68 out of the dollar, but you still got 32 cents only. The only is only because you would take the amortization payment and put it below the line. So you can still do wages and salary. There are 4 categories of current expenditure: wages and salaries, transfers and subsidies, interest payment, goods and services. But amortization is included in the debt servicing, just like how we pay back a loan. But you take it out. Technically, you should take it out. So that's why it sounds like 68%, and then you only have 32. That's not true. Yeah, we treat that below the line. So in fact, when you see the fiscal deficit being quoted in any publication, it does not include amortization. All right.
All right. Krista J. Paul, she has something new for us. Krista J.
Yes, we're heading now to Combermere School, St. Michael Central, where we have Josue Nelson there with a report. Josue?
By the way, let me check, show you where this is.
Josue, are you with us?
Yes, I am with you.
All right. What's happening there at Combermere School, St. Michael Central? All right, you are live with
Right,
us.
so I'm here. All right. Hello, so I'm here at the Commonwealth School in Waterford, St. Michael, and from the corner of my eye would have seen the arrival of the third bus bringing the boxes. And this constituency is the staging ground for one of the more interesting stories in the political scene. Here for the 2026 general election, we have three first-timers in Barbados Labour Party candidate Tara Trotman, Friends of Democracy candidate Raymond Wiggins, and People's Coalition for Progress candidate Anthony Hines. Now, the more battle-tested of them is Andre Worrell from the DLP. So he would have contested in the 2022 general election under St. John. In that instance, he would have received 1,547 votes, eventually losing to Charles Griffith. This time around, he is running, and he was here earlier. He didn't say much, but he was asking for the arrival of the boxes. He's the only one that has shown so far. We've seen members of Tara Trotman's campaign here just waiting for her arrival. Just a bit about the candidates for Trotman. She adds a little bit of spice to the soup that is this campaign run. She was a former Democratic Labour Party member, former Young Democrat, before leaving the party and now wears the red colors. And Raymond Wiggins, he is a son of St. Michael Central soil. I was here on nomination day when he would have made his registration, and he said that he wished to support his people and represent them. And that really is his call for election this year. And the same for Anthony Hines. He's not a son of St. Michael Central, but he is a returning national who very much declared his passion for the people of St. Michael Central, who he said took him in. And he wants to give them the representation he believes they deserve. So far here, still waiting for results. The boxes have come in. And of course, as we get more, I will be reporting here from Commonwealth School. This is Jose Ramirez Nelson, Barbados Votes, and I'll be here with you live.
Thank you so much, Jose, and please continue to keep us up to date. David Ellis is back with us. And David, I want to say to you that there's so many issues that have erupted from this entire campaign. You were just discussing off air another one.
What I am curious about at this stage is the voter turnout. And I think we need to have the analysts look at that in comparison to what has happened previously. And we need to get some sense of what we've been hearing about the voter turnout today.
All right, look, let's head up north. Let's go to St. Lucie. Christy J, who do we have in St. Lucie with us?
Yes, we have Jason Bell. Jason, are you with us?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Heard you and seeing you.
Who are here just discussing the day's activities. And of course, as I indicated to you, the voting counting process has begun. The first set of boxes arrived approximately half hour ago, and they got started immediately. I understand that the votes from the Checker Hall area, so that will be closer to the west and southern side of this northernmost parish, are yet to arrive. The boxes came here under heavy security by our Barbados Police Service, rather. Yeah, we're looking forward to a long night. have my own water, given the water crisis here. So we're looking forward to a long night. And for a bit of context, about 48.5% of the eligible voters voted last time. The eligible voters are around 9,000, and we have about 4,500 votes in total. And the incumbent, Peter Phillips, defeated Bola de Piso, erstwhile leader of the Democratic Labour Party and candidate for St. Lucie, by about 1,000 votes. We're looking forward to a much closer race this time around. For Barbados Votes, this is Jason Dow.
All right, thank you very much, Jason. They're in the beautiful parish of St. Lucie at Darrell Jordan Secondary School, where counting has begun. And we must say a big thank you to our advertising partners for Barbados Votes 2026, Western Wholesale Service at the right price, Blue Waters. You see, we have our Blue Waters on the table here. Hydration in every size, Nature's Discount. Get healthy with the ultimate health food store. Courtesy Garage, legendary service, legendary performance with GAC, where craft meets technology. Nissan, innovation that excites, and Hyundai. Barry?
Yeah, thank you so much. The boxes continue to arrive. Compton underway in St. Lucie. St. Michael, southeast, I believe. Let's have a look and see what's happening down there. Boxes have also begun to arriving just a little bit late. It's understandable as to what we've had. St. Michael, northeast will be, of course, the Prime Minister of Barbados. St. Michael Southeast, correction, is where we're seeing. St. Michael Northeast is the PM of Barbados. Clarine Howard of the BSP, Jamal Sandiford of the DLP against me and Motley. That's going to be a massive hill to climb. So we're in St. Michael Southeast. That's Santia Bradshaw, the Deputy Prime Minister of Barbados, Pedro Shepherd, and Roy Turney, ironically, in 2022. That's where we saw the first boxes coming back into the Starcom network when we were indeed doing the count here. I want to go back. We have some questions coming. I'm going to give you a number you can reach us at in terms of sending lots of messages. This is just one that was sent to us. It says to Ambassador Maskell, this question says, can you please explain the 30 cents per out of the dollar that you were talking about, and explaining that to Mr. Wickham? Can you just redo that for us and explain it?
Sometimes I feel so compromised as a professional economist, and being is hard.
Well, you were both, to tell the truth.
Yes, so I understand, but sometimes it can cloud person's judgment. All right. Actually, the best place to see this is in the annual reports of the central bank. All right, let me explain. There are two categories of government expenditure. One is called capital expenditure, and one is called current expenditure. Current expenditure has four categories: wages and salaries, goods and services, interest payment on debt, and transfers and subsidies. Right? Those are the four economic categories. You would notice that only the interest payment is in the current expenditure of the government, because the amortization payment is treated below the line. And I explain again that when you borrow money to build a home, you have converted the mortgage into a real asset called a property. Therefore, only the interest payment on that mortgage is considered to be an expense to you. If I get technical, it means that the house now goes on the balance sheet and the interest payment stays on the income statement. All right? And that's why when economists calculate the fiscal deficit for Barbados or any other country, they put the repayment on debt below the line and they extract it from the fiscal deficit. But however, even as an individual with a mortgage, you still have to pay your principal plus the interest. So a government does the same thing. When a government calculates its interest payment on debt out of revenue, it still accounts for the amortization. But technically, it could be put below the line because you've already converted the debt into a road or a building or something useful, except when you were born to pay wages and salaries and things in the last administration. You understand? Which you don't want. Anytime you're borrowing at home to pay a utility bill or to buy food, you're doing something wrong. If you're borrowing, you can amortize that borrowing across 40 or 50 years because the room is going to last that time, right? And that's the reason. So even when we say that we're taking 68 cents out of the dollar, it includes the principal on the loan as well as the interest. But technically, we can actually back out. If we were getting technical, we can back out the principal and put it down below the line. So that's why it would appear then as though when you do your expenditure, it would even go over the dollar. You with me?
But Barry, I still think it is very important for us to talk about the voter turnout. We haven't had a chance to talk about that.
I would love to talk
so
about
far.
it.
And people here want to hear a bit more about that. It is crucial in this discussion this evening before the results start to come in.
Yeah, we would love to hear about the voter turnout. Colville is a good man. You're a good man to go to because you were on the road all day. We had crews on the road as well. Philippe Amy, Chantal Legault Gibson, and Adiel Beezer, who we're going to talk to a bit later on. I was also out between 6 and 8 this morning, and I must tell you that the turnout looked to me like it was very snaily and very slow and low. But I was not out after 8 o'clock, so I don't know if that continued, if that trend continued. You were out a lot. Were there long lines throughout Barbados at the polling stations today?
I, like you, Barry, would have been out just for the early morning up to mid-morning. So I cannot speak equivocally to the turnout past that time period. But like you, I did observe that, especially in St. John, persons trickling in, especially compared to 2018. You saw
that was good.
Very long lines, persons from as early as Minister 6 getting there. There was no comparison this time around. Very, very slow trickles for the mid-morning votes, the early morning vote, sorry. As I said, you'd have to defer to someone else that would have captured those voters that came post just close to the end of work and see what that turnout was like.
I want you to send us your WhatsApp messages. We can now take your live messages at 1-246-826-5827. We have a number of persons who are commenting on the YouTube who are watching from Canada, from England. 826-5827. That's 826-5827. You can send us your messages to the panel. We have an open discussion as we look forward to the boxes continue to come in and the count to start very soon. It has started in some places. Jamal, you look at the fact that we speak a lot about the whole voter apathy, but I know you wanted to share something about that particular comment.
I noted Dr. Masco's comment earlier with regards to the actual consideration of people needing to canvass. I don't think that's the only factor that you have to take into consideration. The truth is, when you look at the two political parties in Barbados, one of the two political parties has been able to get out its base over a period of time. And I think the other aspect is that the other hasn't been able to attract people by way of turning out. So if you look at the St. James North by-election as an example, you would have seen that Chad Blackburn was able to get just under the amount of voters expected from the Barbados Labour Party. But if you look at Felicia Dujan's performance, she was unable to be on par with her opponent. The truth is, I think it comes down to point as well. Barbadians recognize that there are 30 seats awarded to the Barbados Labour Party in the last election, in the last two elections. Can you get an opposition or can you get a government formed out of the Democratic Labour Party? I don't think so. Most people don't think so. And therefore, they don't see it as a reason to go out and vote. You know, the Dems can't win, so why am I going to vote? So if you look at all the international publications today, Reuters, all of them said Prime Minister Mia Mottley is moving towards her third term. I don't think, even coming out of the poll that was conducted by Starcom and Nation Group, there's any in a farm government at the end of this evening. So therefore, Barbadians also don't see it as a necessity to go out and vote for the opposition, even though they may have concerns about what is happening in the country. And therefore, with that being said, because they are also concerned with what's happening in the government, they're not going out to support the government of the day. So you have a challenge where one political party is losing the confidence of Barbadians, and the second, Barbadians are not able to trust them as yet. They don't feel confident in them either. And I think that must be taken into consideration. Yes, the concern about canvassing and politicians being able to go out there and get familiar with their constituents. We see them all over social media. They go for a couple photo ops and say, yes, they were there. But Barry, even I want to touch the matter with regards to the EBC as well. I agree in principle with Dr. Maskell. The deliberate use of vague quantifiers to draw some form of a conclusion. It is not evidence, it is the construction of narrative. And I think that we must avoid doing that. But what I also want to lean towards is that I reject the notion on the end of Dr. Wickham that you had a whole year to call election. Look, the truth is, it is embedded in the Constitution from a time immemorial for the Prime Minister to have the right to call an election wherever he or she sees fit. It's happened all across the region. You look in St. Kitts and Nevis, Timothy Harris had a collapse within his government. He called the elections. You saw it in Gaston Brown. He called midterms with no COVID, by the way. And he decided to go to election, leaving the UPP with one seat in Antigua and Barbuda. Is it the thing that Barbadians want? Maybe not. But the truth is, it is in the Constitution. So to paint this idea that, oh, you had a whole year to go towards an election, why rush? The truth is, it is in the Constitution. It is a constitutional right afforded to the Prime Minister. And if we look at the reality, it wasn't the Barbados Labour Party that constructed that constitution at the time.
I think a very important question here is the extent to which the way things are done in Barbados, to what extent are they undermining people's faith in the system? Mm-hmm. That is a crucial question. And if you are going to be able to win a majority of the people who have voted, but you have far more people who have stayed away from the polls than have actually voted, then what kind of environment are you creating? I'd like to hear Deborah and Bruce on that, because I think we need to talk a bit more about that voter turnout issue.
No, what I would say is that had you looked at turnout over the last couple of cycles, you've seen a steady decline in voter turnout in Barbados. There's several reasons why. I think Jamal is spot on when he spoke to the political party being weak, that being the Democratic Party, because his insistent support him. The Barbados Labour Party at no point has fallen under 40% support. Even 1986, where people talk about when they bring in 3 seats, they won 3 seats with 40% support of Barbadians. If you look at the Democratic Labour Party, they fell under that 40% in 1999. They fell under 40% in 2018. They fell under 40% in 2022. And they will likely fall under 40% tonight. So what you have is a circumstance where you have a dominant political party in the Barbados Labour Party, and the Democratic Labour Party is simply not performing at the same levels. And therefore, it not being to perform at the same levels means it's not pulling out many Barbadians to come to the polls. So I agree with Jamal on that.
I want to ask you on the flip, Devron, what did the levels of the Barbados Labour Party fall to in 2008?
Pardon me?
The level of support. What were the level of support for the Barbados Labour Party in 2008 when they lost? What was the level of support?
Oh, they lost with 48% of the vote.
Yeah.
So they've been able to keep their base and more Barbadians beyond their base supporting them. So they've always done well. I think the real issue is the Democratic Labour Party not being able to pull its votes out and not being able to attract new voters to the process. Not saying that the Barbados Labour Party is not losing, I don't want to say support, but the love aspect, because I'm saying you may very well see a loveless landslide tonight. Barbadians continue to support the Barbados Labour Party, but it is not out of a great admiration. It is simply the fact that they don't have a viable alternative in many instances. So I would caution.
And you're using that thought process based on what?
Based on the poll. So you're seeing an increase in support based on the poll that was done in January. And if we look through electoral history, as I mentioned, the Barbados Labour Party has been able to maintain its support even in loss. So this is not, to my mind, a Barbados Labour Party issue. It's a Democratic Labour Party issue in many instances.
Sorry, gentlemen, we do need to take a commercial break. So we'll take our commercial break right now and return with this robust discussion.
Welcome to the Western Sales Center, the home of quality products, excellent service, and of course, great prices. Come on.
You never put up a fight, no.
I'm in some ace, me cool and me calm. Let me give you all. When me looking at your eyes, must see the possibilities. And when I tell you lies and give you broken promises.
You not love the youth, you shoot them on sight. No respect for the roots, you shoot them aside. Cause a long time we are rocky Tina now. Means say a long time we are skunky Tina now. Inna me blood, inna me blood, inna me blood, inna me blood, inna me blood.
You're really soldier. Piece of Ethiopia. There in Kingston, Jamaica. King Street to Princess Street. Cook it up and make we steam it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make we roast it. Palm fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, full in it. A tilapia so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make we fry it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
Reggae facts. Jamaica has had many reggae songs topping the UK singles chart. The first was Israelites by Desmond Dekker and the Aces in April 1969. The second reggae song to top the UK charts was Double Barrel by Dave and Ansel Collins in May 1971. Other Jamaican songs which held the top spot include Everything I Own by Ken Booth in 1974, Uptown Top Ranking by Althea and Donna in 1978, I Wanna Wake Up With You, Boris Gardner, 1986, Twist and Shout by Chakademus and Pliers featuring Jack Radix in 1994, Breathe by Blue Cantrell featuring Sean Paul in 2003, What About Us by The Saturdays featuring Sean Paul in 2013, Cheerleader by Omi in 2015, and Rockabye by Clean Bandit featuring Sean Paul and Anne-Marie in 2016. Now, Shaggy has had the most number one hits on the UK charts. Oh Carolina, 1993, Bombastic, 1995, It Wasn't Me featuring Rick Rock, 2001, and Angel featuring Rayvon in 2001. Reggae Facts was brought to you with the kind support of the Jamaica Association of Composers, Authors and Publishers, JCAP, valuing your musical creativity.
My job is to ensure that every man, woman, and child maintain good health at all times.
Our primary function is to ensure that government services are delivered effectively and efficiently.
We are building forward
together.
Look forward to the results coming in this year's 2026 general elections, but no counting really has started as yet. I think in St. Lucia has, and a number of the call centers are telling us that the majority of the boxes though have arrived. So that is indeed pretty interesting. Ambassador Clyde Maskell, before the break, you wanted to raise a point of order to some of that was on the panel. Feel free to have any open interjection and to jump in. You don't have to necessarily wait till your name is called, but feel free to jump in, especially if you don't believe Ambassador Maskell with these figures. And I haven't said that because I don't believe you. I haven't said it because I don't believe you. I'm just saying. I tend to read minds very well sometimes. Go ahead.
No. I did, man. I'm a very truthful man, so there's no problem. First of all, the ability to call an election is a weapon that the Prime Minister has. You know what I mean? And he or she is free to do so. So until you change the Constitution, it is not a Sunday school game, politics. So you gotta be prepared for it whenever it comes. You can't tell a Prime Minister when to call an election. Even if you feel, it doesn't matter how you feel. That's the nature of the politics, the political landscape. I was pointing out, though, that we had 3 elections in 8 years between 1986 and 1994. All right? That's what we had. Nothing has really changed. I think we're just in a different environment. And the attitude towards politics is simply a reflection of what we are seeing among our young people. You understand? An indifference and a lack of appreciation for the things that others fought so hard for. Even the appetite for education is not there and has not been there for a long time. And Christine, you would know that on campus, there are 4 females to every 1 male.
Yes.
You hear I tell you? On campus, and this has been happening for quite a while. Females have taken over, and rightly so. It's not a problem. What I'm saying, until you can encourage, we have more, and I won't digress a little, we have more males than females taking the 11+ exam every year, you know. Mm-hmm. There are more males under the age of 25 in Barbados than there are females. But yet still, right? And that flips as you get older, females take over in the higher cohorts. But yet still at university, there's a 4-to-1 ratio of female to male. And at tertiary level. So this lack of engagement that we're seeing from a major part of our population extends itself beyond education and coming into the political arena. And there's a serious other matter that we need to discuss. And Mr. Ellis has been hitting it over the years, right? Getting that participation and people feeling as though they come to this environment to make a difference, as opposed to coming to it in an entrepreneurial sense. The concept of voter entrepreneurship, which was
buy and vote?
I knew you talking about, which was raised far back. It was wonderfully said by, I think, Winston Cox years ago. It's something that we need to look at in terms, because especially the males in our society need to become a lot more engaged in those things that they consider irrelevant, because we need to be able to show them the relevance of these things, right? Because the country has to go on and it has to live much longer than we think. And you cannot, in a small society, take one part away, the male part from the female part. Just as you can't, in a political party, take the youth out. And that's what happened. That is what recently happened. If you are a political party, you want each and every vote. But you can't separate it. You can't allow all the individuals in your party to have such a say that they allow you to separate. And I know what I'm talking about. I don't have to be explicit. I know what I'm talking about. Politics is difficult. And therefore, when you go to canvas, even persons that you raise with for 20 years and you and them socialize and you come to request and ask them for a vote, they tell you quite frankly, I'm on the other side. No, they're your friends, I'm on the other side. Now, you would think that because you've had such a close relationship with these individuals, that your ability to get their vote should be easy. No, it doesn't work so in this political space.
But
it doesn't work that way. So
one of the questions I think we need to look at is the extent to which non-participation then translates into an absence of motivation and mobilization to achieve national goals. That's part of the reason why we need to understand that.
Yes.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's it.
So I want to jump in here. I think a lot of reflection was placed on voters and not a lot on government. And when I say government, I don't mean any political party. A lot of persons are not engaged because the political outcomes have not benefited them. You've had over many administrations making several promises about improving the livelihoods of people, and you look over generations, they're quite frankly in the same place. So it's not surprising that people then become transactionary when it comes to politics and only expect something on the election day or during the election period, because certainly during the governance period, to their mind, they don't get anything. So we have to speak to the fact that our governments have not been performing in a way that touches sufficient people that they would want to endorse the activity of government, that they would want to participate, that they would want to ensure the continuity of a good government, for instance. So we have to look at how we have been able to impact the lives of Barbadians over generations, and there are a whole host of our society that feel as though they've not been touched positively.
Right.
All right. Well, before we continue, I just need to remind our viewers that you are watching Barbados Votes, the 2026 general elections, brought to you by Western Wholesale, service at the right price, Blue Waters, hydration in every size, Nature's Discount, get healthy with the ultimate health food store, Courtesy Garage, legendary service, legendary performance with GAC, where craft meets technology, Nissan, innovation that excites, and Hyundai. We now have a report from Carol Toppin. Carol Toppin, who is at the Democratic Labour Party headquarters. Carol, you are live. We can see you. Can we hear you?
Yes, indeed. I can hear you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
And yes, live here from DLP headquarters on George Street. It is a beautiful windy night outside, but inside the actual auditorium, it gets a little bit hot. Here this evening, we have, I would say, approximately 20, 25 people milling around. From the time we got here very early this evening, there were some people here as well. Some have moved on, others have come in. Lots of conversation about what's to happen, a lot of anticipation about the possibility of winning several seats. So that is the atmosphere here. We actually have a bit of a watch party going on behind me where people are following everything that's happening and just awaiting the count, the results to see what will happen right here at DLP headquarters. Will we get more people coming through? It sounds that way in talking to some of the individuals who are gathered this evening. And as I said, there's a sense of hopefulness. There's a sense of anticipation. There's that waiting. And yes, so we'll be here with you live from DLP headquarters, George Street in Belleville. I'm Carol Toppin for Barbados Votes.
All right, thank you so much, Carol Toppin. And from the Democratic Labour Party headquarters, we now head to the Barbados Labour Party headquarters with Gaynell Marshall. Good evening, Gaynell. Is Gaynell there? All right, Gaynell, we are okay. Gaynell isn't quite ready, but we are hoping to hear from her soon, right here in our coverage of Barbados votes. Barry?
Yeah, Dr. Hines, I think that the discussion Devron was just having regarding looking at numbers, regarding looking at some current trends, you are on brass tacks quite often. What, over the last 2 to 3 weeks outside of that EBC chat, have people in brass tacks have been discussing about this particular election and numbers coming in to going to vote and so on?
People have been discussing a number of things. They've been discussing candidates. They've been discussing what they think the parties should do, what they shouldn't do. But I really have a difficulty with focusing on what people who call brass tacks are saying, as well as what people in the WhatsApp are saying, because we could view this as selection bias. These are people that opt in. They want to call. They have grievances. They have things they want to complain about. They're for a political party or against. So I don't think this is what we should use to test whether there is truly an increase in voter apathy in Barbados, whether people are disaffected, they're not interested in politics. At this point, I'm waiting on evidence that there is an increase in voter apathy in Barbados. I don't see anything right now that supports this. And if we look at the same brass tacks discussions and some of what you were referring to today, people are so upset they're going to the polling station and the name is not on the list. If you were apathetic, you wouldn't care if your name is on a list. You don't care. You're not going to look to see if your name is on a list. You ain't going to check to see if you are listed as dead overseas. You are not doing any of these things if you are apathetic. And if we take out 2022 because it was a COVID year and the difficulties surrounding people voting in that year, we will see that there are not significant differences in the percentage of persons who actually show up to the polls to vote. It's around 40% of people who are registered who do not show up to vote consistently since around 1991. So if in this election, if at the end of this night, we see that there is a significant drop, then I will be convinced that something significant has changed. But just listening to brass tacks is not really accurate to me, because the people that call brass tacks, I love them, right? But they're not representative of Barbados. They're the people that call. And it's similar to those who, they have their friends that are saying, we ain't voting. But that's because that's who you're associated with. It's not because people in Barbados are in general not voting.
All right, look, we have to, someone actually has written in to your comment. I'll read it after we go to Gaynell Marshall, because she's actually standing by the Barbados Labour Party headquarters in Roebuck Street. Gaynell, come in.
Good night, Barry. Good night to the panel. And you could well imagine that Roebuck Street is an incredible hive of activity as we speak. The startup was very, very early today with the scaffolding and the stage being put up and the familiar stretched fabric of red and yellow of the party colors also coming into the picture, as you can see right behind me. So at the moment, the road still remains passable for anybody who's passing through Roebuck Street, but that's not going to last for very long. It's going to be a while before we see any of the candidates, I would imagine. Just following the coverage of the panel, we can tell that the boxes are now coming through in their respective constituencies. So it'll be some time before actual representatives make their way to party headquarters, but no doubt there's going to be a lot of action. There's going to be a number of questions, hopefully, that we can get answered tonight. I will paint the picture and bring you all the action the best way we possibly can here tonight as Barbados votes.
So it's like if they're about to have a political meeting. All we're missing now is those familiar songs and those things in the background that you hear at these meetings these days. I want to read some messages that have come in based on what Dr. Hines said. This person, Maureen, says, can the voter apathy be due to voters expecting some sort of compensation for the X and not receiving anything in the end? And how do we as a society change this attitude toward voting and encourage the appreciation, respect for the right and privilege to vote? Now, David, you alluded to that whole quote-unquote vote buy-in. Does that exist in Barbados, David? Do you think we have any evidence to suggest that that exists, or do you believe it does?
Well, I think we've had scenarios here in Barbados that showed that things were happening that should not be happening, and this has been going on for a number of years, we turn a blind eye to it. But, we've had legislation put in place talking about how much money could be spent. And we see evidence that far more than that is spent, but people are not prepared to test it. So I would not bury my head in the sand on that particular question of whether there's vote buying or not. I think the more important issue here is how are we going to make people feel that they are so much a part of the makeup of Barbados that even if they don't vote, they still have a desire to participate. And, there are some areas in which I think my friend Jamal Slocum alluded to the number of entertainers and that sort of thing who have been able to kind of raise the bar among some young people. Barbadian youth are not only about those who are interested in entertainment. What happens to the rest of those people out there? What are we putting before them as two parties, or however many other parties they have, that seems to be sending them to a point where they recognize that national development requires more? For instance, I spoke with young people some time ago about, remember when we were pushing them to go online and make money abroad? And then I discovered, wait, they can't make the money because the way Google and YouTube set up, there was a big problem. That was as big an issue for them as the discussion there was about correspondent banking. Up to now, I have not heard that we have solved that problem. These are some of the ways in which you want to be able to energize young people and to get them to the point of being innovative, and that we move away from the traditional way of trying to move forward, because we all know tourism is it, but we need more than that.
I think, David, there has been a cultural shift that we're not willing to acknowledge. I think in post-independence Barbados, and I'm not speaking from a position of experience, by virtue of my age, I can't suggest such. But I think from understanding, in a post-1966 period, you had a more conscious Barbadian, very much understanding of the challenges that Barbadians would have faced, coming into independence, and free education was something that was valued. I think Dr. Masker, you spoke about that earlier, and what it meant for the average boy in a community in Diamond Corner, or the average man in a family in Gaw Hill who could not afford to send their child to secondary school. So there was that value in education, as Dr. Masker said. Things come easy today, and there's a hype that is associated with a lot that is happening. So it's just not the ease; it is the culture that surrounds the ease. It comes down to people. How do you get money? Let's forget elections a minute. There's the big chains in society now where boys are wearing these big gold chains. It sounds to say, make money, make it quick. Shoot up this and shoot up that. It is a cultural shift, but it doesn't only exist in Barbados. No. It is something that I'm seeing regionally. Now, believe it or not, we are in a much better position than some of our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean. When you go to a political meeting in Barbados, you find people sitting down watching the political meeting. You find people actually sitting down listening to what the platform speakers are saying. In other Caribbean islands, if you do not fly in the big international artists, you can't pay a sing. And that's the truth. We saw in St. Vincent and the Grenadines just recently, Shensia versus Massacre at the final rally.
Didn't Vibes Cartel come in for?
No, he didn't come in, but he made a video at the end for Prime Minister Gonzalez, former Prime Minister Gonzalez. So, I mean, we are still a little more subtle than other Caribbean islands, but I still believe that there's a lot left to be desired. One thing I'd like to also add, and it's important for us to delineate a little bit more, is the conversation. I heard Verla de Pisa speak about it in 2022 about a reset. The society needs a reset. You hear Prime Minister Motley speaks about a new national consciousness. You know, people in the US talk about the woke culture and these things. I believe that in the global context, there are a lot of challenges that people are experiencing with governance and with political figures, political actors, and we can't shy away from these issues. Look at Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. You know, there's a lot to be left to be decided. Now, the truth is, if you look at the Democratic Labour Party's campaign, you didn't see any major Barbadian soca artists. There was no Mo, there was no Lead Pipe with Tech Charge, Jordan English snapped last night in Bay Street. The Democratic Labour Party chose a gospel artist from Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, as much as I love his music, I can tell you no young person is going to Highgate Hall to hear no mass and gospel on a Tuesday night. I could tell you that. And half of the people not aware of what's going on. I think the philosophical underpinning of the Democratic Labour Party's campaign had significant value. What they were intending to package was a party that has moral standing. The righteous party. Do Barbadians agree with that? That's a whole different discussion. But what I believe the positioning was more aligned with where a small subset of the society believes we should go, but not the majority.
Clay, is there value? Oh, sorry. You wanted to come in, Krista J.
Oh, yes. I was just about to say, we can definitely hear from Mr. Maskell after this commercial break.
Wonderful.
You never put up a fight, no.
I'm so easy, cool and me calm. Me give you all. When me look in your eyes, me see the possibilities. And me not tell you lies, don't give you broken promises.
You not love the youth, you shoot them on sight. No respect for the roots, you shoot them aside. For the long time we are Rocky Tina now. Me say a long time we are Skunky Tina now. In on me blood, 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 in on me blood.
Like a real soldier, just like a piece of Ethiopia. Kingston, Jamaica, King Street to Princess Street. Cook it up and make we steam it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make we roast it. Farm fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, fully net. A tilapia so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make we fry it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
My job is to ensure that every man, woman, and child maintain good health at all times.
Our primary function is to ensure that government services are delivered effectively and efficiently.
We are building forward
together.
Reggae facts. Reggae was added as a category to the Grammy Awards in 1984. The nominees: Capture Life by Peter Tosh, Stepping Out by Steel Pulse, Reggae Nights by Jimmy Cliff, Anthem by Black Uhuru, and King Yellow Man by Yellow Man. Reggae's first Grammy Award was won by Black Uhuru, presented at the 27th staging of the awards in February 1985. Yellow Man was the first DJ nominated for a Grammy. Judy Mott, she was the first woman nominated for a Grammy in the reggae category for her album Working Wonders in 1986. In 1992, Shabba Ranks became the first DJ to win a Grammy Award with his album As Raw as Ever. The next year, he won again with his album Naked. The first female to win a Grammy in the reggae category was Coffee in 2020 for her EP Rapture, the first EP to win a Grammy Award. The first non-Jamaican reggae act to win a Grammy Award was Soulja in 2022 with their album Beauty in the Silence.
Thank you very much. We're back with Barbados Votes. I know the real reason everyone is here is to hear who is going to win the election. Just to tell you, counting has begun at almost all of the stations now. It's 9 minutes after 9. They were off to a very late start. We're getting our correspondents telling us that the boxes have arrived and counting has begun. Mainly in St. Lucie, they seem to be pretty advanced, where counting is so far going quite rapidly. So I expect that might be the first box that we hear, but we'll wait to see what that happens. Kevon, of course, is here. He is our statistician. Kevon, stats. Any stats do you have for us so far? What can you tell us so far based on the trends that we're seeing for this election for 2022, 2026, I beg your pardon?
Well, Barry, the truth is, it's still pretty early on the night for us to make any characterizations at this point in time. But what I can say, based on the discussions and based on the data that came from 2022, the seats that we're actually paying attention to in particular would be St. Lucie, St. John, St. Lucie, St. John, St. Philip North, St. Philip West, and St. Michael Northwest. So over the course of the night, as more polling districts come in, we'll be able to make a better characterization of how the race will go within these particular constituencies.
Just explain to us what we're seeing behind you. We're seeing a blue and white map, not reminiscent really with the colors of the political parties. Well, blue is the DLP, but what does the white represent? What does that map really represent behind you?
Oh, no, this is just an illustration of the areas that we're looking at in terms of, so it's not attributable to any party at this point in time. Okay. It's really just indicating the seats that we're paying special attention to over the course of the night.
All right. So the blue are the ones that we're paying special attention to, correct?
Yes.
All right. So you've got St. Lucie. Forgive me for not correctly calling all these constituencies correct, but that's St. Philip North and St. Philip West. And that's Christchurch South, is it?
Christchurch South and St. Michael Northwest.
I didn't do too bad. I was going to ask you if that was one of those Trump versus Kamala Harris maps.
No, not this time.
All right. St. James South, counting underway at St. James South. That also apparently is going quite well. Earlier today, Philippe Amy and Adiel Bezer, they were, of course, speaking to the representatives at St. James South. And they both felt very, very confident about what was going on. And the turnout there this evening between 4 and 6 p.m. was very, very, I don't say big, because Clyde doesn't want me to get into all these wonderful and big adjectives. But I thought, Clyde, forgive me here, but I thought that there wasn't a flood of people, but there were a noticeable increase of people who were at the polls. I hope I'm politically correct in saying that. Coming back to you, 2003, I believe you would have run one in the farm. You would have run in St. Michael North. Northwest. I wanted to talk to you about being a politician versus now the role that you have. How difficult is it to divorce yourself from watching what is going on in politics and now working in a more administrative, bigger role? How difficult is it to divorce yourself from seeing what's going on and vote buying? You were not involved in that. You were a decent politician. But were you one who used to go and buy drinks here and there for the fellas and hope that turned into a vote here and there?
Given my experience, in politics. I very much enjoy what I do now.
Okay.
I very much enjoy. I didn't have to buy any drinks. I was from the area. I was very much into sports.
Yeah.
I played everything from wine to iodine, basketball, cricket, football, socialized quite a lot. So I never had to be so engaged. But in actual fact, at some point in time, you need to recognize what contribution you can make. And I was sitting very quietly next to Christine on campus as a lecturer, and I could have done that to my retirement. But I chose this route because I've been able to do so many things. I'm not a man. For example, minimum wage study, the first one, did that. I'm responsible for the fishery industry reform, transport board reform, in terms of leadership of it, involving income tax reform, corporate tax reform. I did the taxi tariff, lots of other things. So people want to know how he was so quiet, why he was so quiet.
Yeah.
Too busy to keep noise. Plus, too busy. Plus, there are other people now. They're younger people who we need to encourage to get involved and take the limelight. I said it earlier. If you're interested in politics, especially if you're in opposition, that's where you make a name for yourself. But the notion that you can stay away from becoming involved and going out there and being judged, and then all of a sudden you can assume a position of leadership and it is going to change you. That's not how it works. You understand? You have to be so engaged from early so that you sit in Parliament and there's so many things you can talk about, but you remain quiet. And you don't change that easily. You're either that way or not. I can tell you from you, if I had to live my political life or what I would have done, I would have tried to be far more impressive in terms of how you speak and that kind of thing and image, right? And that sells better.
I want to ask you, do we make too much of this whole party hopping? I mean, you were a Democratic Labour Party member. We now had Donovan Ennis, who was saying that it's ridiculous to have Chris Sinkler and Michael Lashley being part of now the BLP. But when you look at it, Kerry Simmons was starting the Dems. He's now a B. You were in the Dems. You are now quote unquote a B.
Yeah.
Do we make too much of it in a small society of this party hopping?
Because listen, anybody who, especially when we got involved was after the turmoil in the Democratic Labour Party. And a lot of young people went in there. And the truth is that if you're going to make that decision, then you have to have the freedom to do whatever you like. If I want to be a B, I will be one. If I want to be a Dem, I will be one. Nobody should question that. It is difficult in itself to participate in politics, regardless of which side you're on. But so the notion that about this loyalty, people can change their minds and move. Philosophical?
Party.
Oh, the philosophy?
The philosophy of a party? The political parties
you think about it. Think about it for yourself.
What does it suggest?
No,
I'm thinking, but
you're thinking.
I'm not a university lecturer.
You're a university lecturer. You all over the region, Jamal. You all over the region dealing with different political parties and things. You understand? And the thing is that you need to be in a space where you feel as though you can offer your best.
Yeah.
When you give
in the system, I mean, there is some merit in what Donald Ennis would have suggested.
What's that?
That, you know, here one day, look, Barbadians today left the Democratic Labour Party in 2018 because they were sick and fed up of how they felt under their administration.
Right.
You stood on the platform on multiple occasions. You said that the Democratic Labour Party led us to economic ruin. But here today, you have the Minister of Finance, who was the architect of the so-called lost decade.
Right. Yeah.
You know, now involved in the political campaigning of the Barbados Labour Party.
Yes, sir.
And hold on, you also have Michael Ashley,
right,
who was deemed the worst minister of housing in the history of Barbados.
Right.
Now, I'm not helping you, Dr. Wickham, with but what I am saying is that these are the little things that make a difference for us young people.
Yes.
And it leads for a more mature Barbadian. They be like, oh, it's good to see Michael left them in their confusion. But, when I sit down and think about it, especially my contemporaries who are equally economists, lawyers, doctors, I don't want to call it the intelligent group. People don't want to feel as if you are playing games with them. And it almost feels as that is what's happening. Whether I'm not debating whether it's right for Michael to join the Barbados Labour Party, and I'm just saying that's how people feel.
Yeah, there's a freedom he has, but that when you step back, all life is a set of relationships. That's all life is, a set of relationships that start when you're young. And as you evolve, you then are able to evaluate and you can change. You can change your mind. Yeah. But the fact that you are going to tell a young man who made a decision to become involved in an endeavor for which there's no certainty. And I don't want to talk about Clyde Maskell at all, but what I'm saying is that you take a chance to get involved in politics. You don't win. You're qualified for a job. You then apply for a job, but on the basis that you enter the political space, you cannot get the job. You with me? And therefore, it's just about relationships. And as you evolve and mature, you begin to recognize that, hey, if things are not, because political parties or any organization, they're not as easy as you think. You understand? So I'm saying to you that you can't confine a fellow to a space.
All right. Before we continue, we now do need to go to Princess Margaret Secondary School, where we have Archelaus Weeks. They're in St. Philip West. Archelaus?
Hey, very good evening to you. Moderately easterly winds here at the Princess Margaret School, St. Philip West. And the first box came in at around 7:15, in fact, 7:48 and 7:51, and then at 9 o'clock. And we're waiting for the results in just a bit. Now, St. Philip West, it's a hotly contested area. The spotlight tonight is on the high-stakes rematch between incumbent Kay McConney from the Barbados Labour Party, defending her seat, with the familiar challenger, Dr. David Eswick. Of course, there are other parties, Katrina Goodridge of the Friends of Democracy and Lynette Eastman of the People's Coalition for Progress, also in the mix. And this may be one of the many competitive races on the cards tonight in Barbados. Candidates and supporters are waiting to see if the constituency remains a BLP stronghold or shifts back to the DLP, or will have an upset in the likes of Katrina Goodridge from the Friends of Democracy and Lynette Eastman of the People's Coalition for Progress. Just to give you some information here before we go back to you, the St. Philip West is a Central West constituency in the parish of St. Philip. Key areas and villages within its boundaries include Church Village, Ebenezer, Six Roads, Raritan, St. Martin's Mangrove, St. Patrick's, and Charnock. So we will get back to you. They're counting, and of course, we'll bring you all of that right here, live, Barbados Elections Coverage 2026.
All right, thank you very much, Archelaus Weeks. All right, we head now to St. Philip North, where Calvin Callender gives us that report from Hilda Skeen Primary. Calvin? All right, okay, we'll go ahead with a commercial break. More when we return.
Reggae Facts.
Reggae was added as a category to the Grammy Awards in 1984. The nominees: Capture Life by Peter Tosh, Stepping Out by Steel Pulse, Reggae Nights by Jimmy Cliff, Anthem by Black Uhuru, and Pink Yellow Man by Yellow Man. Reggae's first Grammy Award was won by Black Uhuru, presented at the 27th staging of the awards in February 1985. Yellow Man was the first DJ nominated for a Grammy. Judy Mott, she was the first woman nominated for a Grammy in the reggae category for her album Working Wonders in 1986. In 1992, Shabba Ranks became the first DJ to win a Grammy Award with his album As Raw as Ever. The next year, he won again with his album Naked. The first female to win a Grammy in the reggae category was Coffee in 2020 for her EP Rapture, the first EP to win a Grammy Award. The first non-Jamaican reggae act to win a Grammy Award was Soulja in 2022 with their album Beauty in the Silence. Reggae Facts was brought to you with the kind support of the Jamaica Association of Composers, Authors and Publishers, JCAP, valuing your musical creativity.
Na 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 na, we want a piece for Jamaica. Yeah, yeah. We have to be our brother's keeper. Yeah, yeah. Jamaica live good, yeah. I make we enjoy life. You have to feel safe at night. Jamaica live good. I better you and I. No say we future bright. Jamaica live good. Come together as one. I make the violence no more.
Jamaica, I can help you protect our citizens.
Jamaica Eye will play a part in increasing your public safety.
Jamaica Eye is part of an island-wide network of camera surveillance systems designed to increase the safety of you, our citizens. If you have a camera system outside your home or office facing a public space, log on to jamaicaeye.gov.jm today. Jamaica Eye, we're all connected. The Ministry of National Security, creating a safer and prosperous Jamaica.
Jamaica, let's spread the word around to let the world know that we are proud to be one republic. We are the republic. Well then, let's propel we nation moving forward in a new direction. True independence as the projection. No more dependency is the best plan. Yes, we know what's best for us, cause we want we country prosperous. So make we just pull together as the general public while on the road to republic. Let's spread the word around to let the world know that we are proud to be one republic. We are the republic.
Message from the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
We want a piece for Jamaica. Yeah. Yo, what up, man? None of that. No, brother. No, I'm not sure about it.
See you ever play a dirty game?
Well, you know, you have the after party. We're having the commercial party in here because so many interesting things are being said. It's a good thing that the mics were on. Some definition suits might be flying left, right, and center. But the situation and the discussion regarding political parties and party hopping is indeed one that is taking shape. 826-5827 is the number that you can send us your thoughts. We have a plethora of messages. Forgive me, Clyde, again for the adjectives. But we have quite a few messages coming in. And, and the messages are coming in. But Jamal and Clyde, you were making the point, and not Dr. Christina Hines, Kristen Turton was making the point that the Barbados Party did not have the amount of people deflecting into the Democratic Labour Party when they were in power between 2008 and 2018. And that has been the genesis of the discussion during the break. Jamal, you were making the point that there were some deflections, even if they were not quote-unquote high profile. Want to just speak a little bit about that?
Look, I mean, I don't even want to go down the granular name calling. The truth is, we have to look at the broader picture. I was saying to Dr. Maskell at the break, the circumstances when he left the Democratic Labour Party were quite different. 2003, by 2008, the Barbados Labour Party was in opposition. Lest we forget. I mean, let's look at what we have today. We have an opposition who has been unable to win one single seat. 30 seats they have lost, 2 by elections across 4 elections in the country. What does that mean? It means that you allow B's to be B's and you allow Dems to be Dems. Some may not hold that opinion that I share, but I mean, even when you had the Tyra Trotman crossing into the Barbados Labour Party, you had Dr. Lynette Holder, who was perceived by many Barbadians as a loyal servant of the Barbados Labour Party, almost sidelined after years of service to the institution. And it leads down to the point that I was making earlier. We must be careful that we are not flying in the face of the Barbadian public. And it leads to a further conclusion that when we are speaking about the broader issues of apathy, and when we're speaking about the broader issues of how Barbadians treat to politics and the system of government, that they don't treat to it as a joke because it seems as if politicians are taking it as a joke. And I say this final thing with it. You know, there's a concept that all politicians sit down in the lunchroom at Parliament, they eat up and drink 2 whiskeys and a beer, or they're going to hide out and go by Brady's bar, or they're going to go to Thirsty Lizard together, and they're going to have a good time. I'm not advertising, by the way. But
some of your pay was just docked. On that point, though, Jamal, someone has just mentioned that please tell Jamal that Dr. Ronnie Yearwood deflected from the Barbados Labour Party and then became president within 2 years of the Democratic Labour Party.
That is true. But he didn't fly straight into at the top of the party.
But he did.
No, that's not correct. Dr. Ronnie Yearwood ran in an election under the leadership of Verla de Pisa. It was, and that same year became president. No, hold on. Dr. Ronnie Yearwood was not seen immediately as the next in line. There were other people who vied for the party's leadership in that same cycle. Lest you forget, George Pilgrim ran against Verla de Pisa. Then you had the Reverend Guy Hewitt ran against Verla de Pisa. You had a case where Richard Seeley was said to be in the wings waiting to take over. David Eswick was in the wings waiting. Ryan Walters, lest you forget, was one of the most popular Democratic Labour Party candidates. You know what happened? Dr. Ronnie Yearwood was seen as the second coming of Clyde Maskell. The room is silent. That is the truth. Many Barbadians saw Dr. Ronnie Yearwood as the second coming of Clyde Maskell. And I will say this, I'm going to predict this tonight, the first prediction. If the Democratic Labour Party is unable to make any headways, Corey Greenidge will be on the consideration blocks for the leadership of the Democratic Labour Party. And I say this because the Democratic Labour Party has a certain a way of characterizing the type of profiling, the type of candidates that they're looking for. It is not working, however, because here you have a demigod, almost like a strong political figure in that of Prime Minister Motley, that all Barbadians love. It's almost like a celebrity figure. And there you have the Democratic Labour Party with a more philosophical, academic, crunchy numbers sort of guy. And the truth is, at the time when the Barbados Labour Party had Owen Affer and the Democratic Labour Party had Dr. Clyde Maskell, you had 2 economists head-to-head. But then you had David Thompson, who came in with the whole liming on the blocks and making people feel good about themselves. That's the reality we have to face.
David, I think you wanted to respond to that?
Well, all I can tell you is that when I watch the movement of the politicians over the years, I'm among those who would say to you that it comes across as though they're all the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's no real distinction between them. And we talk a lot about the buying of votes. But it looks to me as though a lot of money is spent in trying to attract people from one to the next. All right? Whether that person is offered a consultancy or if that person is told that they are better positioned financially if they cross from one to the next. I mean, let's look, we can look at people who have gone over to the BLP, but the same thing could be said, for instance, of Ralph Thorne, who bettered himself in a sense out of the fact that he became opposition leader. And from opposition leader, it's a better position for him. But I'm curious, I'm very curious because we have not heard anything from you, Dr. Wickham, for quite a while. And I mean, the balance dictates that we should hear.
Opposition leader Thorne, our leader Ralph Thorne, made it very clear when he crossed why he crossed. Now, as it stands right now, persons can switch parties for whatever reasons. There's nothing against that. But he made it clear why he crossed, when he crossed. I think the crossing, as has happened in some cases, has contributed to the cynicism and the apathy. Going back to what you were saying, Jamal, you know, you have the two persons who could be accused of being the chief architects of the 2008 to 2018 period crossing over, not say for philosophical reasons. And in fact, one of the individuals back in 2013, then opposition leader, said criminal charges should be pressed. No mention or discussion of that. So the public looking on, be like, okay, so they're all the same. That was just telling us what we want to hear at a time to get a vote, but you didn't really take it seriously. You didn't mean what you said. All politicians are the same. Leader Thorne, when he crossed, he made it clear that things were happening that he could no longer remain silent. Yes, he tried to toe a party line to a point, but that last budget speech, while he was still a member of the Barbados, the party where he was very critical of the then government, you know, he would have pointed out he couldn't stand the situation that he was seeing. So he made it clear when he crossed, it was for philosophical reasons. His conscience could no longer allow him to stay on the side of the Barbados Labour Party. He told you why he crossed.
Is that any different from what Michael Ashley did? He was not, obviously he didn't cross the floor, but he switched parties. What about his reasons?
He's allowed to cross for whatever reasons, and the public of Barbados will judge.
But his explanation had to do with treatment, how he was treated in a party where he was a senior member. He performed at the highest possible level in the last election. Everybody lost, and he got, I think, the most votes, right, of everyone in terms of the margin.
Yeah.
Right. And the way he was treated, or he says the way he was treated, is what caused him to leave the Democratic Labour Party.
Yeah, but I would be very cautious. I'd be very cautious about listening to only one version of that.
Precisely.
And
No. What I'm saying is not necessarily accepting what he said or anything. I'm saying we're being told Ralph Thorne said his philosophical reason for leaving. We can't say that and accept that and then being criticized now is saying he left because he was mistreated. In the same way that Tyra Trotman is saying, you locked me out, I am not staying, I'm going elsewhere. Right? The point is, I think we have to treat those differently from how someone might perceive what happened with Christopher Sinclair.
But what about the persons that left the BLP? Why did Dr. Yearwood leave? Did he ever say?
No one knows. But what was his position? Like, did people know who he was? When he was with the Barbados Labour Party, right? Was he a significant figure? I don't know that he really was.
I don't think he was a major player at the time. No.
He was barely chairman at Alexander School Board.
Right, so people leave. People leave. I'm not saying that we should just accept people leaving. In fact, what I believe is that now people are more conscious about the leaving. And there are a lot of people who are losing trust because of the leaving. But there are some instances where people see, I mean, with Tyra, for example, when you locked the doors to your members and they leave, I think Barbadians were more sympathetic to those people who left that party. for that reason.
Irene said
that they might be for somebody else.
But in all
We do need to, yes, we have another report, and we need to help. Well, we were trying to reach Calvin earlier, so he's now ready. Calvin Calendar in St. Philip North. Calvin?
Yes, good evening. You can hear me loud and clear?
Yes, sir. We can see you as well.
Hey, got you know. Okay, well, I'm here in the scheme from school, St. Philip North, where is a rather quiet evening, quiet and quite windy here in St. Philip. There's tight security, really tight security. Here in St. Philip North is St. Philip Affair, all St. Philip Affair, where we have the incumbent, Dr. Sonia Brown of the Barbados Labour Party, who is running in her third general election in 2018 and 2022. She defeated the veteran DLP candidate Michael Lashley. And this time around, she's up against Simon Clark, an attorney at law, also a cousin of Michael Lashley, and needless to say, also from the parish of St. Philip. Friends of Democracy, Anaya Lord, also attorney at law, also bred and born in the parish of St. Philip. Also her first time running in the constituency. Also in the race is Nigel Newton of the PCP, that's People Coalition for Progress. And once again, he's also from the parish of St. Philip. It is said that St. Philip is the parish where one family lives. So we're in for a keen battle of one family here in the parish of St. Philip. So from a quiet and windy St. Philip North, I'm Stephen Calendar for Barbados Voice.
All right, thank you very much, Stephen. They're in St. Philip North,
Thank
and
you.
we now take another commercial break.
Reggae facts. Reggae was added as a category to the Grammy Awards in 1984. The nominees: Capture Life by Peter Tosh, Stepping Out by Steel Pulse, Reggae Nights by Jimmy Cliff, Anthem by Black Uhuru, and King Yellow Man by Yellow Man. Reggae's first Grammy Award was won by Black Uhuru, presented at the 27th staging of the awards in February 1985. Yellow Man was the first DJ nominated for a Grammy. Judy Mott, she was the first woman nominated for a Grammy in the reggae category for her album Working Wonders in 1986. In 1992, Shabba Ranks became the first DJ to win a Grammy Award with his album As Raw as Ever. The next year, he won again with his album Naked. The first female to win a Grammy in the reggae category was Coffee in 2020